Hey everybody, welcome to Never Too Old for YA. Today is our last episode for the book You'll Be the Death of Me by Karen Mcmanus. So this week we'll be discussing chapters 26 through 36 of the book, which is all the way up to the end, and we'll also be giving our final thoughts on the book and final ratings for the book as a whole. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube at Never the Number 2 Old for YA. This podcast is streaming on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, YouTube, and Facebook.
Hey, Kels.
Hey, Mal.
I don't even know what to say other than I was right about some things. But I don't know. It was so good. I was screaming throughout the whole house like, I knew it. I knew it. And my roommate over there was like, what's going on? Not my roommate, my significant other.
Wow, you really just called him your roommate? Dang,
Yeah.
that's really a downgrade. Are you mad at him or something?
I'm always mad at him. Oh, yeah. He kept asking me, like, what's going on? Are you okay? And I'm like, I knew it. I was right. Of course, I couldn't like tell him what I was right about because there was just too much going on. And of course, he doesn't read. So he wouldn't have known what I was talking about anyways. And he would have gotten bored like halfway through me explaining. But I was so happy finally finding out what was going on. I was so like relieved, first of all. And I get that like we were reading like a suspenseful book, but the thing is like having this mystery and like reading it in sections, I realized just doesn't do it for me. Like I was starting to lose interest fast. But I was so happy to find out what was happening. Go ahead, Kels, tell us what you thought.
Yeah, I liked it. I really thought that the author did a good job of not making everything so obvious. Some of it was like, oh yeah, you picked the obvious choice for like that person to be involved. But then like for other things, like it wasn't so obvious and it was kind of shocking, like, oh wow, you gotta be kidding me. Like how Mateo's dad, Darren, ended up being the D guy that sent that card to Lara.
I know. What the heck was even that? I was like, there's no way this girl can ruin their lives even more. There's no way they were getting back to everything being normal. Are you kidding me?
I know, that was insane. And then it left me, well, crap, we're skipping like all the way to the very end of the book, but I guess we'll kind of go backwards today, maybe.
No, for people that aren't reading and are just as excited or have anticipated this outcome as well, it was the coach. He was the mastermind behind it all. But go ahead, Kels, what were you going to say?
With that last line of the book where Ivy tells Mateo we're going scorched earth on Lara, on Miss Jameson, the art teacher that is behind all of this and basically ruined everyone's lives. I wanted to know more. I wanted to know what their revenge plan was. And then the book just ended.
I hated the ending. The only reasoning I will accept for this ending is that there's going to be a sequel because she did do that somewhat with One of Us is Lying. She had written One of Us is Lying, and then after One of Us is Lying, she wrote One of Us is Next, which isn't like the same characters, but the same kind of plot. But this really sounded like she's ready to do a sequel to You'll Be the Death of Me. But then I'm kind of thinking like this was just everything was wrapped up in a pretty bow. To keep it going would be so unnecessary.
That's true. I think it would be unnecessary and like really beyond wanting to know how Ivy and Mateo are going to get back at Lara. Like that's really the only thing I would want to know. And I don't think she can write an entire book based on that.
Right, but the sudden ending, I didn't like too much. But as far as like the outcome of everything, okay, so going back to last week's episode, the last we heard was Mateo had called off of Boney Mahoney's phone the last phone call that he made out, and he heard the person's voicemail on the other line, and he recognized the person immediately. I was thinking it was Coach. I was thinking it was Laura. There could have been like so many other things. The fact that it was Autumn's boyfriend, Gabe, I don't know why that hit me so hard. I was like, where did we even? I totally forgot about Gabe. One. Second, I would have never guessed that he had anything to do with this because he was like so small, like a small part of this, like the beginning of the story. And he had everything to do with this. Like the whole time. He was the weasel. What the? I was like, there's no way. And then we found out that Gabe was trying to save Autumn from this whole mess that was going on and planted the list with St. Clair, Mahoney, and Mateo's name on it because if someone had that list, they were going to go after Mateo and not Autumn. So that whole like storyline right there was like, it blew my mind. I was not expecting him to be the weasel. I was definitely expecting Ivy's brother Daniel. Heavily, like 100%. I knew it was him, but I was wrong.
I was and I wasn't surprised to learn that Gabe was the weasel. From the way that Mateo described him at the beginning of the book, like he seemed really super sketchy and just like not a good guy at all. And he didn't like him with Autumn and like just, I don't know, he just seemed like a really bad guy. But then, yeah, like you said, I kind of forgot about him a little bit. And then once he came up in the story again as the weasel, I was like, oh, duh. Yeah, like Mateo was right. I think he's like a really bad guy or whatever. Like he wasn't just being paranoid.
So tell us what else we learned.
So Mateo's mom is gonna be like the director of the entertainment side of Ivy's dad's business for the bowling alley that he's turning into like an entertainment complex. And she's gonna get a settlement on what happened for her bowling alley too. So like they're gonna be okay with money now. So I was happy to learn that. So that means that Mateo and Autumn only need to work like one job each, and they're both volunteering at like a homeless shelter for people who like have drug dependencies. That was kind of interesting, like to know that they're kind of like giving back in a way and like making things right as best they can. Charlie St. Clair got sent to military school. Ivy and Mateo ended up together after all. So that was kind of like a silver lining of everything because I really like throughout the book I was thinking, okay, these two are never going to be together. Like there's been way too much bad blood between them.
But the way that it happened too, he was outside of her window with sugar babies. Oh, the romantic in me was so happy. I was so happy to hear that they got together. But I think we're missing like a really vital point in what happens in this section of the story. Ivy gets kidnapped by Coach.
Oh, duh. I forgot. I mean, I didn't forget. Here I am talking about all this like really kind of insignificant stuff in the story. And we totally just left that other part alone that got them into the situation in the first place.
So we're gonna have to take it back now. Hold on. Okay, so we find out that after Ivy leaves the school, she gets a text from Daniel saying, "Hey, I need you to pick me up." He gives her an address. It's super sketchy. She's the only car there other than another car with the headlights completely beaming on her. And she's like, "Hey, I'm here. Like, where are you?" It's super sketch. Someone comes out of the car while she's getting the jumper cables because they were like, "Hey, the car died or whatever." And when she was in the back taking out the cables, like at this point we don't know. All we know is that he hit her, or the whatever person hit her and took her. And then cut to Mateo, and he's fighting with Gabe and finding information out. with the weasel and what the heck's going on. And then on the other side of town, Cal's with Laura trying to figure everything out, like what's going on, how come, and she's leaving, like she's packed up, getting ready to flee. And she just starts spilling it all. Tell us what she spilled. Tell us the tea, Kelsey. Tell us.
So she basically tells Cal that Coach set her up, like he framed her. Basically, that's why there was pills in her desk drawer. He's basically trying to make it look like she's the one behind all of this. And honestly, who even knows if she's telling the truth? Because she's a freaking snake. I don't even know what to believe anymore from her. And then Cal confronts her about the D person or whatever. And she was like, oh, he's just a distraction. He's like nothing to me. He's just another distraction. And then, like we said, D ends up being Darren, Mateo's dad. And they end up getting engaged. And yeah, it's a whole mess.
Which makes me think that, like, what is her end game? She just goes from guy to guy, taking what she wants and then leaves. Like, it's pretty random to go from Coach Kendall to a roadie for, well, who was it? The Grateful Dead? Like,
Grateful
what?
Dead tribute band.
Exactly. Like, how random is that? A teacher to a roadie?
Yeah. Yeah. So she seems like she's just a blood-sucking, like, monster, basically, who just takes what she wants from people and uses them for however they're useful to her and then casts them away. Like, Cal never meant anything to her, which is fine because that was not even supposed to be a thing in the first place because of the, like, power dynamic and the age difference and everything. But really though, like, she showed herself to be so heartless, and then once she got arrested, like, she didn't go to prison or anything, like, but she's like cooperating with the police and she lawyered up really good, and she's basically now trying to look like, oh, like, I had no idea he was doing this, and like she's kind of like the victim, like kind of playing stupid to Coach Kendall's thing, and like that she was in fear of her life, that he was like really like abusive and like just like would fly off the handle and stuff like that. And yeah, she just looks like a monster.
Which leads me to the next half. And I think we're going to be stuck on this topic for a little bit because Laura really is conniving, like just such a manipulator. Because when all this happened, like after everything, okay, I'm getting ahead of myself again. When Cal is with Laura, she's basically just being like, whatever, yeah, like she knows everything that's going on. Like nothing is news to her. But he's catching her fleeing so that her name's cleared. So essentially, Ivy and the boys were just wrong place, wrong time. And it so happened that they were both blonde. So that we got cleared up. But when she's leaving, Coach Kendall walks up to the house and is like, what's going on? Why is Cal here? Kidnapped Ivy, put all three of them in the garage, is waving the gun around, talking about, I have plan B or whatever. This whole time, I'm thinking, okay, Laura's working with the cops. Like, she's wearing a wire because she's having him talk like everything out. Like the whole book is unraveling in this one scene in the garage between the four of them. Mateo, mind you, is out at the party where he caught Gabe, right? So basically, to sum everything up, Coach is a big, like, he's the hookup. He's the drug pen there. He's getting all the kids what they need. Mahoney stole from him, and that's what ended up dead. But it wasn't Coach, actually. It was like one of his henchmen or whatever. And so basically, Coach made up this whole plan, getting ready to get his stuff together. He was in fear of getting caught. Boney had to die. and everything's just unfolding. And Laura's like, well, what are you gonna do? So then she like, from victim to master manipulator, she's like, well, this is what we're gonna have to do. We're gonna have to overdose them, leave them for dead. Then we'll say that they did this, and we'll just plan it all on them. And me and you can go away. We can go to a beach. We can hang out. Like, we can start over. And he's like believing her, and like, oh yeah, like, even though a second earlier he was so angry he was ready to kill her, and now he's like, no, that does sound right. But then Ivy sees that Cal is sitting next to a crowbar, and Cal's just like, it's now or never, and just charges him. Is losing the fight, by the way, but he did successfully get the gun out of his hand. So now that the gun's out of Coach's hand, he's fumbling and beating up Cal, while Ivy and Laura are just rolling around on the floor, fumbling for the freaking gun. They're both trying to get the gun. And Ivy's just about had it. Like, she's fighting for her life at this point. Coach is choking the life out of Cal. And Cal is trying so hard to stay awake. They've both come to terms that they're going to die. And Mateo comes in to save the day. Cops everywhere. Mateo's like, are you guys okay? Ivy's parents are still stuck in traffic somewhere. They're not even there. But the cops are here. They get everybody. Coach is put in handcuffs, taken away, as well as Laura, who's still playing the victim, by the way. And it was just all in that one scene where it all unravels. And to me, Laura went from being the helpless, stupid pedophile of an art teacher, just completely clueless, to like the true mastermind of this whole operation. I feel like she knew the entire time what she was doing. And I think that she goes from guy to guy, manipulates them into thinking that they're the boss when really she's the one handling things. So I think that if Karen Mcmanus goes on to make a Laura book, I think it'll just be them unfolding like all the wrongs she's done in her life, because that would be the only thing that I think that she could go off of. Because Laura, after the way she was talking to the kids, talking to Cal, talking to Coach, she just sounded completely different from the Laura that was in the cafe that met Cal up and in the beginning of the book. Go ahead, Kelsey. I talked way too much right there.
No, you're good. You said pretty much everything I was thinking about Laura. Like, yeah, and she was very careful throughout the whole thing, because she turned her phone in like for the police to use as evidence, and go through all her messages and stuff. So they found out about like her and Cal's little relationship or whatever. Like, nothing ever really happened between them, but like they knew that like things got kind of inappropriate and they were kind of going towards that, but never really got to anything. But that's been like kind of picked apart by the media and stuff. And Cal went through their messages again himself and really like thought about it. And he can tell now that she was always very in control. Like, and he basically throughout the messages comes across as like having like a huge crush on her. And she's just kind of like stringing him along, like never really intending to do anything. Like she's got nothing, not nothing to hide, but like she's done no wrong. Like she's not instigating a relationship or anything. Like he's kind of like a lovesick puppy trailing after her, but like she's not gonna do anything to him.
Exactly. She was very careful on what she was doing, who she was doing it with, what she was saying. She had me fooled for just a little bit, because I always thought something was up with Laura.
So now, guys, I think we've covered pretty much everything that happened at the end of the book and like how the story played out. So now I think it's probably a good time for ratings and final thoughts. So my rating for the book as a whole overall, on a scale of 1 to 5, probably like a 4. there was some parts that were really engaging, really exciting, really attention grabbing, that I couldn't wait to read more. And then other parts that just like one particular section that we were bored with. And honestly, we were thinking that people might even skip over that episode for that section. I forgot exactly which chapters it was now, but there was like a particularly like boring, dry section where nothing really happened. And I feel like some other sections were like on the verge of that so we read this whole book basically except for the last episode in groups of 5 chapters, so 5 chapters at a time. And there was like that one really boring section that we went through of 5 chapters, and then some of the other sections that we went through like were kind of on that same track of being really boring, but then finally something good happened, or something really good would happen, really interesting, really whatever, like attention grabbing, like to further the story along would happen, and then things would calm down a little too much. I mean, I understand that it's not a roller coaster. We can't be, as readers or even as authors, constantly jumping from like major development to major development at like breakneck speeds, like the whole novel through. But I feel like she kind of took too many long pauses in the action. Like there should have been like shorter in between moments where like not a lot happened, instead of like a whole chunk of like 5 chapters where nothing really developed. So that's probably my major criticism of this book. But yeah, overall I give it a 4 out of 5. I thought the characters were likable and engaging. But that being said, like the story itself was engaging. The characters were interesting enough. But I feel like we needed more backstory for some of the characters, especially Cal, because his major like character trait just seemed to be that he was in a relationship with Lara. Like that was kind of most of the backstory we got, and he had just broken up with a girl who was like, you know, his own age, and like, he got dumped by her because she said that he had changed too much and he wasn't like he used to be, and like he's a shell of himself or whatever. His storyline was kind of more focused on like his relationships to other people rather than like his own actual experiences or like things that have happened to him or connections to other people, or like where with Mateo you got like the whole backstory with his mom's bowling alley and how they had to shut it down and everything. And then with Ivy, like her dad's a property manager and he like owns a bunch of property, and he bought out Mateo's mom's bowling alley. Like there was kind of some story there. Like that was like a subplot of the book. But with Cal, there was really no like backstory. I mean, the main thing was that he has 2 dads. Like his dads are gay and they're together or whatever. Like that was like a kind of like made to be a point in the story, and his relationship with Lara, basically, and his love of like weird donuts because of that like weird donut shop that they went to where it had like all kinds of like the donuts had all kinds of weird stuff on them. Like there was one that was like topped with like crushed up Cheetos or something. But yeah, like so Cal's character kind of fell flat. I feel like there could have been kind of more character development between well, no, I was gonna say that I feel like there could have been more character development between Ivy and Daniel as siblings. But I feel like there was enough there because there was like that really huge prank that he played on her. So there was that, and then that led to the thing at the bowling alley that led to the bowling alley closing because she was trying to get back at him. So she put a bunch of baby oil on the floor thinking, okay, he'll slip and it'll be funny, whatever. She wasn't intending for anybody to get hurt. So I feel like I guess that there was enough context there and enough like backstory between them. And then they start getting along better by the end of the book. And her dad calls her extraordinary at one point, and that was really cool because, you know, like she had overheard a conversation when she was younger between her parents about how extraordinary Daniel was because he scored so high on this like intelligence test or something. You know, and she always kind of felt less than after that. Like like her brother was so like superior and like just better than her and like more smart than her and just, extraordinary. And then her dad calls her extraordinary. So like and she's like, and then she goes, and it felt as good as I thought it would. So that was pretty cool. And then Mateo, I appreciated his character because he's like really strong and really independent, really there for his family, really protective of his family, and protective of his friends too. He was probably my favorite character because I enjoyed his characteristics the most, like that protectiveness and like fierce loyalty, because I kind of relate to that in myself, I guess. So that's probably why I liked him the best. But yeah, I would recommend this book to people who like mysteries. It started out a little slow, but then by the end of the book, I understood like the reason for that and how that was just exposition. Like, but for a mystery, I was like, man, this is sure starting off slow because I'm not really that used to reading mysteries, so I thought it was gonna like take off a little faster. But and then it ended up being a pretty good book. I liked it. But yeah, 4 out of 5 for me. How about you, Mel?
I gotta say, Kels, you covered a lot of it. I definitely agree. Mateo was my favorite character. You're absolutely right. Cal deserved better and he needed a little bit more. Ivy was the most annoying throughout the whole book. But me going into this, okay, so what I didn't tell you is the idea of creating a podcast with you came out of me reading One of Us is Lying. I read that book in one sitting and I was like, I have to talk about this with somebody, because I don't have many people or anybody in my life other than Kelsey that reads. And so I feel like if I go to anybody else, they're just going to be looking at me like, No, I need somebody to interact with me here. I need to talk about this right now. And so I was reading that book, and when I finished it, the idea of the podcast came to me. And I immediately knew I wanted to do this with Kelsey. So reading this book, because I loved One of Us is Lying so much, I was going into this book very excited, and it did not disappoint. I would rate it a 4.5 out of 5 stars. Definitely recommend this if you're looking for a quick mystery whodunit. Well, obviously not you guys, because if you're listening, you already technically read along with us or listened to us. But I would definitely recommend to somebody you love who loves a little, mystery. But yeah, I don't even know what else to say, Kels. You kind of covered everything, but I'm very excited for when to be done with this book. Yes, I loved it. Yes, it was a good book, but there's something so like exciting to finish a book and move on to the next. And within the last couple of episodes, I was like, okay, I'm ready to move on. So I'm excited for that. But first, we have a bumper episode. What's our next topic for the bumper episode, Kels?
So the topic for our next bumper episode is going to be our favorite shows of all time. And we kind of wanted to do this because, for one thing, it'd be easy to talk about. But also, like, for you guys as listeners to kind of get to know us better, get to know our taste in, like, TV and pop culture and stuff a little bit better. So, yeah, tune in next week to find out what some of our favorite shows of all time are. Give us recommendations for other shows that are similar that you think we might like. But yeah, jump in, engage with us.
I am definitely excited for this next episode. I love TV. There's just so much to talk about. I can't even start talking about it because then I won't shut up. And that is for next week.
All right, everybody. So the next book we're going to be reading is going to be Every Last Word by Tamara Ireland Stone.
So thanks, guys, for listening to this episode of Never Too Old for YA. We're streaming on Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, YouTube, and Facebook. Please follow us at Never2 Old for YA on Instagram and Facebook. Until next time, bye.